Jack Mitchell was a man of routine and reliability. He had spent over 2 decades working as an engineer for a prominent tech company in Tech Valley, a hub of innovation and industry. Jack's life was orderly, revolving around his work, his modest hobbies, and most importantly, his family. His wife, Linda, was an English teacher at a local high school, and they had 2 daughters, Emily and Sophie, who were both attending prestigious universities in the Northeast. With both daughters away at college, Jack had anticipated a time of reconnection with Linda. They had always had a strong marriage, marked by mutual respect and affection. However, as their empty nest phase began, Jack noticed subtle changes in Linda that unsettled him. It started with small things. Linda, once attentive and engaged, seemed distracted and distant. She began spending more time at her writing group meetings and less time with Jack. Initially, he chalked it up to her passion for writing. Linda had always dreamed of being a successful author, and now that the girls were away, she finally had the time to dedicate to her craft. One evening, as Jack was cleaning up after dinner, he overheard Linda on the phone. Her voice was low and conspiratorial. "I can't wait, Evan," she said with a giggle. 6 whole weeks without any responsibilities, no commitments, and no one waiting for me to get back. Jack's hand froze mid-wipe. Who was Evan? And what exactly was Linda planning? His stomach churned with unease. He decided to address his concerns subtly at first. "Hey, Linda," he began, trying to sound casual. "Who were you talking to just now?" Linda glanced up, her expression briefly startled before she composed herself. "Oh, that was just Reggie from my writing group. We were talking about the upcoming workshop in Michigan." Jack nodded, but suspicion gnawed at him. He knew Reggie's voice. This had not been Reggie. His mind raced, piecing together the odd behavior and hushed conversations. He needed more information before confronting her outright. Days turned into weeks, and Linda's behavior became increasingly erratic. She would leave early for work, claiming to have extra meetings or errands. She often returned home late, offering flimsy excuses about extended writing sessions with her group. Jack's anxiety grew with each passing day. One evening, while Linda was out, Jack decided to take a look at their phone records. His heart pounded as he navigated through their account. Sure enough, there were numerous calls to a number he didn't recognize, all labeled under the name Evan. Jack's pulse quickened. He needed someone to talk to, someone who could offer advice and support. He picked up the phone and called his old friend Mark, a no-nonsense guy who had been his confidant since college. "Mark, it's Jack. I need to talk to you about something important," Jack said, his voice trembling slightly. "Sure thing, Jack. What's up?" Mark's voice was steady and reassuring. Jack explained the situation, detailing Linda's suspicious behavior and the phone records he had found. "Jack, you need to get some concrete evidence before confronting her. Otherwise, she might just deny everything," Mark advised. "Have you thought about hiring a private investigator?" Jack sighed, rubbing his temples. "I hate the idea of spying on her, but I need to know the truth. I'll look into it." The next day, Jack contacted a reputable private investigator. He explained his suspicions and provided the phone number he had found. The investigator assured him that they would handle everything discreetly and keep him updated. A few days later, Jack received a call from the investigator. "Mr. Mitchell, we've been following your wife. She's been meeting with a man named Evan after work. We have photos and videos. You might want to brace yourself." Jack's heart sank as he reviewed the evidence. The photos showed Linda and Evan in various intimate settings, laughing together at a cafe, holding hands at a park, and even entering a hotel room. Jack felt a wave of nausea. This was his worst fear confirmed. That evening, Linda returned home, her face flushed with excitement. "Jack, I have some amazing news. I've been accepted to the University of Michigan's summer writing workshop." Jack forced a smile, his mind reeling from the betrayal. "That is great, Linda. I'm happy for you." As Linda chattered on about the workshop, Jack's mind was elsewhere. He needed to formulate a plan, but first he had to gather more evidence and prepare for the inevitable confrontation. Later that night, as Linda slept soundly beside him, Jack lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The trust he had once had in his wife was shattered. He knew that the coming weeks would be the most challenging of his life, but he was determined to uncover the full extent of Linda's betrayal and take the necessary steps to protect himself and their daughters. Jack Mitchell couldn't shake the image of Linda and Evan from his mind. Every smile, every touch between them, replayed in his head like a torturous loop. The evidence provided by the private investigator had confirmed his worst fears, but he knew he needed to stay calm and collected. There was still more to uncover before he could confront Linda. Jack decided to focus on his work to distract himself. His job at the tech company in Tech Valley required meticulous attention to detail, which was usually a welcome escape. However, even the most complex engineering problems couldn't fully take his mind off Linda's betrayal. During lunch, he confided in Mark, who had been a rock of support through the years. They met at a quiet diner on the outskirts of town, a place where they could talk without being overheard. "Mark, I am drowning here," Jack confessed, stirring his coffee absently. "Every time I close my eyes, I see them together. I cannot believe this is happening." Mark leaned forward, his expression serious. "Jack, I know this is tough, but you need to stay focused. Have you gotten any more information from the private investigator?" Jack nodded, pulling out his phone. "Yeah, they sent me more photos and videos. It's clear that Linda and Evan are more than just friends. They've been meeting regularly, even staying overnight at hotels." Mark frowned. "That is bad, Jack. Really bad. Have you thought about what you're going to do next?" Jack sighed heavily. "I need more evidence, something undeniable. The investigator suggested placing a hidden camera in our house, but it feels so wrong. I never wanted to invade her privacy like this." Mark placed a reassuring hand on Jack's shoulder. "I get it, but you need to protect yourself. If she's planning to leave you for Evan, you need to be prepared. Get the evidence you need, and then you can confront her with the truth." Jack took a deep breath, feeling the weight of Mark's words. "You are right. I have to do this, even if it feels terrible." Over the next few days, Jack worked with the private investigator to set up a small, discreet camera in their home. It was hidden in a bookshelf in the living room, positioned to capture any interactions between Linda and Evan. Jack felt a knot of guilt in his stomach as they installed the device, but he knew it was a necessary step. Meanwhile, Linda continued to act as if nothing was wrong. She went about her daily routine, teaching her classes and attending her writing group meetings. She even began packing for the summer workshop in Michigan, humming happily as she folded her clothes and organized her notes. Jack watched her closely, noting every detail. Her cheerfulness seemed genuine, which only deepened his confusion and pain. How could she be so happy while deceiving him so thoroughly? One evening, Linda announced that she would be working late with her writing group. Jack nodded, hiding his suspicion. As soon as she left, he checked the hidden camera footage. Sure enough, Linda had invited Evan over. They sat on the couch, talking and laughing, their closeness unmistakable. "Evan, I can't wait for our trip," Linda said, her voice filled with excitement. 6 weeks away from everything. It's going to be perfect." Evan leaned in, his expression tender. "I know, Linda. It's going to be amazing. Just you and me, no distractions." Jack felt a surge of anger and betrayal. How long had this been going on? How many times had they sat in his living room planning their future together while he was none the wiser? Determined to get more concrete evidence, Jack decided to follow Linda and Evan the next time they met. He contacted the private investigator and arranged for them to tail the couple discreetly. The following week, Linda left the house, claiming she was attending a special writing seminar. Jack followed at a safe distance, his heart pounding. He watched as Linda met Evan at a cozy cafe on the other side of town. They spent hours there, deep in conversation, oblivious to the world around them. The investigator captured everything on camera. Linda and Evan walked hand in hand through a nearby park, their affection blatant. They stopped at a bench, where Evan pulled Linda close and kissed her passionately. Jack's grip tightened on the steering wheel. The sight was almost unbearable, but he forced himself to keep watching. He needed every bit of evidence he could get. That night, as Linda returned home, Jack pretended to be asleep. He couldn't face her, not after what he had seen. He lay in bed, his mind racing with plans and strategies. He had to confront her, but he needed to do it in a way that left no room for denial or manipulation. The next morning, Jack received another call from the investigator. They had followed Linda and Evan to a hotel where they spent the night together. The investigator provided detailed photos and videos, leaving no doubt about the nature of their relationship. Jack felt a mixture of relief and despair. He had the evidence he needed, but the cost was his peace of mind and the trust he had once had in his wife. That evening, Jack sat down with Mark once more. They met at the same diner, where the comforting familiarity of the place provided a small sense of solace. "Mark, it's worse than I thought," Jack said, his voice strained. "They are practically living a double life. I have all the evidence now, but it is tearing me apart." Mark looked at him with sympathy. "Jack, you've done what you needed to do. Now you have to decide how to confront Linda. You can't keep this to yourself any longer." Jack nodded, feeling the weight of the decision ahead. "I know. I'm going to confront her tomorrow. I'll lay everything out and see how she responds. I just hope I have the strength to get through it." Mark squeezed his shoulder reassuringly. "You do, Jack. You are stronger than you think. Just remember, you're doing this for yourself and your daughters. You deserve the truth." The next day, Jack prepared himself mentally for the confrontation. He printed out the photos and videos, placing them in a folder. He rehearsed what he would say, trying to stay calm and composed. When Linda returned home that evening, Jack was waiting for her in the living room. She looked surprised to see him sitting there, his expression serious. "Jack, is everything okay?" she asked, a hint of concern in her voice. Jack took a deep breath and handed her the folder. "Linda, we need to talk. I know about you and Evan." Linda's face paled as she opened the folder, her eyes scanning the damning evidence. She looked up at Jack, tears welling in her eyes. "Jack, I can explain." "No, Linda," Jack interrupted, his voice steady. "No more lies. I have seen everything. I know what's been going on. I deserve the truth." Linda's shoulders slumped, and she began to cry. "Jack, I am so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. It started as just a friendship, but then it grew into something more. I didn't know how to stop it." Jack felt a pang of sadness, but he steeled himself. "Linda, you made choices that betrayed our marriage. I can't overlook that. We need to figure out what happens next." As Linda sobbed quietly, Jack realized that this was just the beginning of a long and painful process. But at least now, he had the truth. And with that truth, he could start to rebuild his life, one step at a time. Jack Mitchell felt a sense of numbness wash over him as he watched Linda break down in front of him. Her tears were genuine, but they did little to ease the pain he felt. He had hoped for an explanation that might make sense of her actions, but nothing could justify the betrayal he had uncovered. After their confrontation, Jack spent a sleepless night wrestling with his emotions. He was torn between the love he still felt for Linda and the anger at her deception. By morning, he knew he needed to take decisive steps to protect himself and their daughters. He called the private investigator once more to gather every piece of evidence they had on Linda and Evan. He wanted to ensure there was no way Linda could deny the truth. The investigator agreed to compile everything into a comprehensive report, complete with timestamps, locations, and detailed descriptions. Meanwhile, Jack reached out to a divorce attorney recommended by Mark. He explained his situation and provided the evidence he had collected. The attorney assured him that he had a strong case and advised him on the next steps to take. As Jack navigated the legal process, Linda continued to act as if nothing had changed. She went about her daily routine, avoiding any mention of their confrontation. Jack found it increasingly difficult to be around her, the weight of her betrayal hanging heavily between them. One evening, Jack decided to review the evidence once more. He needed to understand every detail to prepare himself for the upcoming legal battle. He sat at his desk, surrounded by photos, videos, and transcripts, feeling a mix of determination and sadness. The investigator's report painted a clear picture of Linda and Evan's relationship. They had met regularly, spending hours together at various locations around town. The photos showed them holding hands, kissing, and sharing intimate moments. The videos captured their conversations filled with laughter and whispered secrets. One particular video caught Jack's attention. It was a recording from the hidden camera in their living room. Linda and Evan sat on the couch, oblivious to the device capturing their every word. "Evan, do you think he suspects anything?" Linda asked, her voice tinged with worry. Evan shook his head. "No, he is completely clueless. He trusts you too much to even consider the possibility." Linda sighed, leaning into Evan's embrace. "I hate lying to him, but I can help how I feel about you. This workshop in Michigan is our chance to finally be together." Jack clenched his fists, feeling a surge of anger. He couldn't believe how easily they had dismissed his trust and loyalty. But as much as it hurt, this video was the final piece of evidence he needed. The next day, Jack met with his attorney to discuss the divorce proceedings. He provided the complete report from the investigator, along with the hidden camera footage. The attorney was impressed by the thoroughness of the evidence and assured Jack that he had a strong case. "Jack, with this evidence, we can move forward with confidence," the attorney said. "We'll file for divorce on the grounds of adultery and seek a favorable settlement. Are you prepared for the next steps?" Jack nodded, feeling a sense of resolve. "Yes, I am ready. I just want to get through this and start rebuilding my life." The attorney outlined the legal process, including serving Linda with divorce papers and negotiating the terms of their separation. Jack listened carefully, taking notes and asking questions. He wanted to be fully prepared for the challenges ahead. Later that evening, Jack decided it was time to talk to their daughters, Emily and Sophie. He knew they deserved to know the truth, even though it would be a difficult conversation. He called Emily first, arranging to meet her at a cafe near Harvard. When Emily arrived, Jack could see the concern in her eyes. "Dad, what's going on? You sounded so serious on the phone." Jack took a deep breath, steeling himself for the conversation. "Emily, there's something I need to tell you about your mother and me. We've been having some serious issues, and I've discovered some things that you need to know." He explained everything from his initial suspicions to the evidence he had gathered. Emily listened in stunned silence, her expression shifting from shock to anger to sadness. "I can't believe Mom would do this," she said finally, her voice trembling. "How could she betray you like that?" Jack reached across the table, taking her hand. "I know it is hard to understand, Emily, but we need to stay strong and support each other through this. I am filing for divorce, and I want you and Sophie to be aware of what is happening." Emily nodded, tears in her eyes. "I am so sorry, Dad. This must be so hard for you." "It's hard for all of us," Jack replied gently. "But we'll get through it. We have to stick together." The following day, Jack drove to Northeastern University to meet Sophie. He felt a similar sense of dread, knowing he had to break the news to her as well. They met at a quiet park near campus, where Sophie often went to relax and study. "Dad, is everything okay?" Sophie asked, sensing his unease. Jack sighed, his heart heavy. "Sophie, there's something I need to tell you. Your mother and I are going through a difficult time, and I've discovered some things that you need to know." He repeated the story, sharing the evidence and explaining his decision to file for divorce. Sophie listened intently, her face pale with shock. "I can't believe this," she said, her voice shaking. "Mom always seemed so happy. How could she do this to us?" Jack hugged her tightly, feeling her tremble in his arms. "I know, sweetheart. It's hard to understand, but we need to stay strong. We'll get through this together." As Jack drove home that evening, he felt a sense of relief. Telling Emily and Sophie had been one of the hardest things he had ever done, but it was necessary. They deserved to know the truth, and he needed their support. That night, as he lay in bed, Jack thought about the future. The road ahead would be challenging, but he was determined to face it with courage and resilience. He had lost his trust in Linda, but he had not lost his love for his daughters or his hope for a better life. The days following Jack's revelation to his daughters were filled with a tense calm. Linda continued to behave as though nothing had changed, immersing herself in preparations for the Michigan workshop and her daily routines. Jack, on the other hand, felt like he was living in a strange limbo, caught between the remnants of their past and the uncertainty of their future. One evening, after a particularly stressful day at work, Jack decided it was time to confront Linda once more. He couldn't let this charade continue any longer. He needed answers, and more importantly, he needed closure. "Linda, we need to talk," Jack said firmly as he entered the living room where Linda was reading. She looked up, her expression wary. "What about, Jack?" Jack took a deep breath, trying to steady his emotions. "About everything. About you, me, and Evan." Linda's face paled, but she quickly composed herself. "Jack, I've already told you there's nothing going on between Evan and me. We are just friends." "Just friends?" Jack's voice was edged with anger. "Do friends spend the night together in hotels? Do they kiss and hold hands like lovers? Do they plan a future together lying to their spouses?" Linda's eyes filled with tears, but there was a defiance in her voice. "Jack, it's not what you think. I was lonely, and Evan was there for me. He listened when I needed someone to talk to." Jack shook his head, feeling a mix of frustration and sorrow. "Linda, you didn't just talk. You betrayed our marriage. You lied to me and you lied to our daughters. How do you expect me to believe anything you say now?" Linda, as tears flowed freely as she looked at Jack, her voice trembling. "I know I made a mistake, Jack, but it wasn't just me. We've been drifting apart for years. You were always so busy with work, and I felt so alone." Jack felt a pang of guilt, but he pushed it aside. "Linda, we could have worked through that together. But instead, you chose to deceive me, to betray me. How can we ever come back from that?" Linda sobbed quietly, her shoulders shaking. "I don't know, Jack. I don't know how to fix this." Jack felt a wave of sadness and exhaustion. "Linda, I don't think we can fix this. I am filing for divorce. It's the only way I can move forward." Linda looked up at him, her eyes wide with shock. "Divorce? Jack, please, we can work this out. We can go to counseling. We can try to fix this." Jack shook his head, his voice firm. "No, Linda, it is too late for that. I have already spoken to a lawyer and I have gathered all the evidence I need. This marriage is over." Linda's face crumpled as she realized the finality of Jack's words. She covered her face with her hands, her sobs filling the room. Jack watched her, feeling a mix of sadness and relief. It was the end of an era, but it was also the beginning of a new chapter in his life. The next morning, Jack served Linda with the divorce papers. She accepted them silently, her eyes red and puffy from crying. Jack felt a pang of sympathy, but reminded himself of the betrayal he had endured. This was the only way forward. Over the following days, Jack began the process of disentangling their lives. He contacted their financial advisor to discuss the division of assets and worked with his lawyer to finalize the terms of the divorce. He also started packing his belongings, preparing for his move to Seattle. One evening, as Jack was sorting through old photos, he found a picture of their family from happier times. It was taken during a summer vacation, with him, Linda, Emily, and Sophie smiling broadly at the camera. Jack felt a pang of nostalgia and sadness. Despite everything, there had been good times, moments of genuine happiness. As he looked at the photo, his phone buzzed with a message from Emily. "Dad, Sophie and I are coming home this weekend. We want to see you." Jack smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. His daughters had been a source of strength and support through this ordeal. He was grateful for their love and understanding. The weekend arrived and Emily and Sophie came home. They embraced Jack tightly, their presence a comforting balm to his wounded heart. They spent the day together, talking and reminiscing about the good times they had shared. "Dad, we want you to know that we're here for you," Emily said, her voice steady. "Whatever happens, we support you." Sophie nodded in agreement. "Yeah, Dad, we love you, and we are proud of you for standing up for yourself." Jack felt a lump in his throat as he hugged his daughters. "Thank you, girls. Your support means everything to me." That evening, the three of them sat around the kitchen table discussing the future. Jack shared his plans to move to Seattle and start fresh. Emily and Sophie listened intently, offering their thoughts and encouragement. "Seattle sounds great, Dad," Sophie said. "It'll be a new beginning for you." Emily nodded. "And we'll visit you as often as we can. We are a family no matter where we are." Jack felt a sense of peace as he looked at his daughters. Despite the pain and betrayal, he knew he was not alone. They would get through this together. As the weekend came to an end, Emily and Sophie hugged their father tightly before leaving. Jack watched them drive away, feeling a mix of sadness and hope. The road ahead would be challenging, but he was ready to face it with courage and determination. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Jack finalized the divorce proceedings, packed his belongings, and made arrangements for the move to Seattle. He also spent time with Mark, who offered invaluable support and advice. On the day of his departure, Jack stood in the empty house, feeling a mix of emotions. This had been their home for many years, filled with memories both good and bad. But now, it was time to move on. As he locked the door for the last time, Jack felt a sense of closure. He was leaving behind the pain and betrayal, ready to embrace a new chapter in his life. With a deep breath, he got into his car and started the journey to Seattle, the promise of a fresh start guiding him forward. Jack Mitchell's drive to Seattle was long, but it gave him ample time to reflect and plan his next steps. The open road provided a sense of liberation as he left behind the turmoil of Tech Valley and headed toward a fresh start. Each mile put more distance between him and the life he was leaving, and with it, the pain of Linda's betrayal. Upon arriving in Seattle, Jack checked into a temporary apartment he had arranged. It was modest but comfortable, providing a quiet space where he could gather his thoughts and finalize his plans. He had already made arrangements for a job transfer within his company, and the new office welcomed him warmly. His new colleagues were friendly and professional, easing his transition into this new chapter of his life. The first week in Seattle was a whirlwind of activity. Jack immersed himself in his work, finding solace in the familiar routines and challenges. His new boss, Henry, was understanding and supportive, aware of Jack's recent personal struggles. The team's camaraderie provided a much-needed distraction from his thoughts. One evening, as Jack was unpacking his belongings, he received a call from Mark. His friend had been a pillar of strength throughout the ordeal, and Jack was grateful for his unwavering support. "How's Seattle treating you, Jack?" Mark's voice was warm and encouraging. "It's been good, Mark. The new job is great, and the city is beautiful." "I feel like I'm starting to settle in," Jack replied, feeling a sense of optimism. "That is good to hear. Remember, it's a fresh start. Take it one day at a time," Mark advised. Jack nodded, appreciating the advice. "Thanks, Mark. I couldn't have gotten through this without you." "Anytime, Jack. Take care and keep me updated," Mark said before hanging up. With Mark's words echoing in his mind, Jack continued to unpack. He hung up pictures of Emily and Sophie, their smiling faces a constant reminder of the support and love he had. Despite the distance, he knew his daughters were with him in spirit, cheering him on. Over the next few weeks, Jack settled into a comfortable routine. He explored the city, enjoying the vibrant culture and scenic beauty of Seattle. He found solace in the peaceful moments by the waterfront, watching the boats drift by and feeling the salty breeze on his face. These moments of tranquility were a balm to his wounded heart. One Saturday, Jack decided to visit a local coffee shop he had heard about. It was a cozy place, tucked away in a quiet corner of the city. As he entered, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped him, and he felt an immediate sense of comfort. He ordered a coffee and found a seat by the window. As he sipped his drink, he couldn't help but reflect on how far he had come. The pain of the past was still there, but it was slowly being replaced by a sense of hope and possibility. While Jack was lost in thought, a woman approached his table. She had a friendly smile and a warm demeanor. "Hi, do you mind if I sit here?" "All the other tables are taken," she asked. Jack looked up, surprised but welcoming. "Of course, go ahead." The woman sat down and introduced herself. "I am Rachel. I come here every Saturday for their amazing coffee." "I am Jack. I just moved to Seattle, so I am still exploring the best spots," he replied with a smile. Rachel's eyes lit up. "Welcome to Seattle, Jack. It's a wonderful city. If you need any tips on where to go or what to do, just let me know." They struck up a conversation, and Jack found himself enjoying Rachel's company. She was kind, intelligent, and had a great sense of humor. For the first time in a long while, Jack felt a spark of genuine happiness. As they chatted, Jack felt a sense of ease. Rachel's presence was comforting, and their conversation flowed naturally. They talked about everything from their favorite books to their love for the outdoors. Jack found himself opening up in a way he hadn't expected. When it was time to leave, Rachel gave Jack her number. "It was great talking to you, Jack. Let us do this again sometime." Jack smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest. "I like that, Rachel. Thanks for the company." As Jack walked back to his apartment, he felt lighter. Meeting Rachel had been a pleasant surprise, and it gave him something to look forward to. He was starting to see that life in Seattle had the potential to be fulfilling and joyful. The next day, Jack decided to focus on finalizing the divorce proceedings. He contacted his lawyer and reviewed the last details of the settlement. He ensured that Linda would be taken care of financially, but he also made sure his own interests and those of his daughters were protected. That evening, Jack received an email from Linda. It was brief and to the point, acknowledging the divorce papers and expressing a mix of regret and resignation. Jack read it with a heavy heart, but felt a sense of closure. It was time to move on. With the legal matters sorted, Jack turned his attention to building a new life in Seattle. He joined a local sailing club, rekindling his passion for the sport. The camaraderie and excitement of sailing brought him a sense of joy he hadn't felt in years. Jack also made an effort to reconnect with old friends who had moved to the area. He attended social gatherings and explored the city's vibrant cultural scene. Each new experience added to the tapestry of his new life, helping to heal the wounds of the past. One evening, Jack received a call from Emily. She sounded excited, and Jack could hear the enthusiasm in her voice. "Dad, guess what? Sophie and I are coming to visit you next month. We've booked our tickets and can wait to see you," Emily announced. Jack's heart swelled with happiness. "That's fantastic news, Emily. I can wait to show you both around the city. We'll have a great time." As the days passed, Jack prepared for his daughter's visit. He planned activities and outings, eager to share his new life with them. The anticipation of their arrival filled him with joy and a renewed sense of purpose. The weekend of Emily and Sophie's visit finally arrived, and Jack picked them up from the airport. They hugged tightly, their reunion filled with laughter and tears. Jack showed them around Seattle, taking them to his favorite spots and introducing them to his new friends. "Dad, we are so proud of you," Sophie said one evening as they sat by the waterfront. "You've been through so much, and you're still standing strong." Emily nodded in agreement. "You're an inspiration, Dad. We love you so much." Jack felt a deep sense of gratitude as he looked at his daughters. They had been his rock, and their love and support had carried him through the darkest times. As their visit came to an end, Jack felt a sense of fulfillment. He was building a new life, surrounded by people who cared about him. The pain of the past was slowly fading, replaced by hope and possibility. That night, as Jack lay in bed, he thought about the future. He knew there would still be challenges, but he was ready to face them. With his daughters by his side and a new life in Seattle, he felt a sense of optimism and peace. Jack Mitchell stood on the balcony of his new apartment, gazing out at the Seattle skyline. The city was beginning to feel like home, but the wounds from his past were still fresh. The upcoming visit from his daughters, Emily and Sophie, was a bright spot in his life, and he wanted to make sure their time together was memorable. He had planned an itinerary filled with activities he knew they would enjoy: visits to the iconic Space Needle, a boat tour around the Puget Sound, and exploring the eclectic shops and cafes in Pike Place Market. Jack was eager to show his daughters the city he was starting to love. The weekend arrived, and Jack waited at the airport with a mix of excitement and nervousness. When Emily and Sophie emerged from the terminal, he felt a wave of emotion wash over him. They rushed to him, wrapping him in a tight embrace. "Dad, it's so good to see you," Emily exclaimed, her eyes shining with joy. "We missed you so much," Sophie added, her voice trembling slightly. Jack hugged them both tightly, his heart full. "I missed you too, girls. Welcome to Seattle. Let us make this a weekend to remember." The first day of their visit was spent exploring the city. They visited the Space Needle, where they marveled at the panoramic views of the city and the surrounding mountains. Jack watched his daughters' faces light up with wonder and felt a deep sense of contentment. "Dad, this place is amazing," Sophie said as they stood on the observation deck. I can see why you love it here. Emily nodded in agreement. Yeah, it's beautiful, and it's great to see you so happy. Jack smiled, grateful for their support. It has been a journey, but I'm starting to feel at home, and having you both here makes it even better. They spent the evening at a waterfront restaurant, enjoying fresh seafood and sharing stories. Emily and Sophie told Jack about their college experiences, and Jack shared his adventures in Seattle. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and love, a stark contrast to the tension and sadness that had marked their last few months together. The next day, they took a boat tour around the Puget Sound. The crisp sea air and stunning views created a sense of tranquility that was a welcome escape from their worries. As they sailed past the picturesque islands and watched seals basking on the rocks, Jack felt a sense of peace. Dad, this is exactly what we needed, Emily said, leaning against the railing. It is so calming out here. Sophie nodded, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Yeah, it's like all our problems are far away. Jack put his arms around his daughters, feeling a surge of gratitude. I am glad you are here. We'll get through everything together one step at a time. That evening, they visited Pike Place Market, exploring the vibrant stalls and sampling local delicacies. They watched the famous fishmongers toss fish to each other, their skilled movements drawing cheers from the crowd. Jack bought fresh flowers for Emily and Sophie, their colorful blooms a symbol of new beginnings. As they walked back to the apartment, Sophie glanced at Jack, her expression thoughtful. Dad, how are you really doing? I mean, with everything that happened? Jack took a deep breath, considering his words. It's been tough, Sophie. There are days when it's hard to believe everything that happened. But I am trying to focus on the future and build a new life here, and having you and Emily by my side helps more than you know. Emily squeezed his hand. We are always here for you, Dad, no matter what. The final day of their visit was spent at a local park, where they had a picnic and enjoyed the beautiful weather. They played frisbee, laughed, and reminisced about happier times. Jack cherished every moment, knowing how precious these times together were. As the sun began to set, they sat on a blanket, watching the sky turn shades of pink and orange. Emily leaned her head on Jack's shoulder, and Sophie sat close by, their presence a comforting reminder of the love they shared. Dad, we are so proud of you, Emily said softly. You've been through so much and you are still standing strong. Sophie nodded in agreement. Yeah, you are an inspiration, Dad. We love you so much. Jack felt tears welling up in his eyes as he hugged his daughters. I love you both more than words can say. Thank you for being here with me. The weekend had passed too quickly, and soon it was time for Emily and Sophie to return to their lives in the Northeast. As they stood at the airport, Jack felt a pang of sadness but also a sense of hope. They had shared a beautiful weekend, and it had strengthened their bond. Take care, Dad, Emily said, hugging him tightly. We'll call you as soon as we land. Sophie hugged him next, her eyes shining with tears. We'll visit again soon, Dad. Promise. Jack watched them walk away, feeling a mix of emotions. He missed them already, but he also felt stronger, knowing they were there for him. As he drove back to his apartment, Jack reflected on the visit. It had been a healing experience, reminding him of the love and support that would carry him through the challenges ahead. He was building a new life, one step at a time, and with his daughters by his side, he knew he could face anything. Back in his apartment, Jack sat down and opened his laptop. He decided to write a letter to Emily and Sophie, expressing his gratitude and love. He wanted them to know how much their visit had meant to him and how their support had given him strength. Dear Emily and Sophie, I wanted to take a moment to thank you both for visiting me this weekend. Your presence has brought so much joy and comfort to my heart. I am incredibly grateful for your love and support during this difficult time. This visit has reminded me of the strength of our family bond. Despite the challenges we've faced, we have each other, and that's what matters most. I am proud of both of you for your resilience and kindness. I want you to know that I am doing my best to move forward and build a new life here in Seattle. Your encouragement means the world to me, and it gives me the courage to face each day with hope. Thank you for being my rock. I love you both more than words can express. With all my love, Dad Jack hit send, feeling a sense of closure. He knew there would still be difficult days ahead, but he was ready to face them. He had his daughters, his new friends, and the promise of a brighter future. That night, Jack slept peacefully, the weight of the past slowly lifting. He was on a journey of healing and renewal, and with each passing day, he felt stronger. Seattle was no longer just a place to escape, it was becoming home. The days after Emily and Sophie's visit were filled with a renewed sense of purpose for Jack Mitchell. He threw himself into his work, finding comfort in the routine and challenges it provided. His colleagues at the Seattle office were supportive, and Jack felt a growing sense of belonging. One evening, as Jack was winding down after a long day, he received a call from his lawyer. The final details of the divorce settlement had been agreed upon, and all that remained was to sign the papers. "Jack, we are ready to finalize everything," the lawyer said. "I'll need you to come in tomorrow to sign the documents." Jack took a deep breath, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. "I'll be there. Thank you for all your help." The next day, Jack arrived at the lawyer's office. He reviewed the documents carefully, making sure everything was in order. As he signed the papers, he felt a weight lifting off his shoulders. It was the end of a chapter, but also the beginning of a new one. When Jack returned home, he decided it was time to address some unfinished business. He had been avoiding any direct communication with Linda, but now that the divorce was finalized, he felt it was necessary to have one last conversation. He picked up the phone and dialed her number. "Hello, Linda." "It's Jack," he said, his voice steady. There was a pause on the other end before Linda replied, her voice tinged with weariness. "Hi, Jack. I wasn't expecting your call. I wanted to let you know that the divorce papers are signed. It's final now," Jack said, feeling a sense of closure as he spoke the words. Linda sighed, the sound heavy with resignation. "I understand. Thank you for letting me know." Jack hesitated, then continued. "Linda, I don't want to rehash everything that has happened, but I need to say this. Despite everything, I hope you find what you're looking for. I hope you find happiness." Linda was silent for a moment before she responded, her voice soft. "Thank you, Jack. I wish you the same. I truly do." With that, Jack ended the call, feeling a sense of finality. He had said what he needed to say, and now it was time to move forward. The following weeks were filled with preparations for his new life. Jack continued to explore Seattle, discovering new places and making new friends. He found a sailing club that met regularly and joined them on weekend excursions. The thrill of sailing brought back fond memories and provided a welcome escape from the daily grind. One Saturday, Jack decided to take a trip to the nearby Olympic National Park. The park's vast wilderness and breathtaking scenery had always fascinated him, and he was eager to explore its beauty. He packed a bag with essentials and set off early in the morning. The drive to the park was peaceful, with the morning sun casting a golden glow over the landscape. As Jack arrived and began his hike, he felt a sense of awe at the sheer beauty of the natural surroundings. Towering trees, cascading waterfalls, and serene lakes created a tranquil atmosphere that soothed his soul. As he hiked along a trail, Jack encountered a group of hikers who were resting by a stream. They invited him to join them, and Jack welcomed the company. They shared stories and laughter, the camaraderie reminding Jack of the importance of human connection. One of the hikers, a woman named Laura, struck up a conversation with Jack. She had a warm smile and an adventurous spirit that mirrored his own. "Have you been to Olympic National Park before?" Laura asked, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "No, this is my first time," Jack replied. "I've been meaning to explore more of the area since I moved here." Laura nodded. "It is a magical place. There is so much to see and do. If you're up for it, we're planning to hike up to Hurricane Ridge tomorrow. The views are incredible." Jack smiled, feeling a spark of excitement. "That sounds amazing. I'd love to join you." They spent the rest of the day exploring the park together, sharing stories and enjoying the natural beauty around them. Jack felt a growing connection with Laura, her positivity and zest for life a refreshing change. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the landscape, Jack and Laura sat by a lake, watching the colors dance on the water's surface. "Thank you for inviting me to join your group," Jack said, feeling a sense of gratitude. "This has been one of the best days I have had in a long time." Laura smiled, her eyes reflecting the colors of the sunset. "I'm glad you came. It has been wonderful getting to know you. Seattle seems to be treating you well." Jack nodded, feeling a sense of peace. "It is. I am starting to feel at home here." They made plans to meet the next morning for the hike to Hurricane Ridge. Jack returned to his apartment that night, feeling a sense of anticipation for the future. He was building a new life, one filled with adventure and connection. The hike to Hurricane Ridge was challenging but rewarding. The views from the top were breathtaking, with sweeping vistas of snow-capped mountains and lush valleys. Jack felt a sense of accomplishment as he stood at the summit, the wind whipping through his hair. Laura stood beside him, her face radiant with joy. "Isn't this incredible?" Jack nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "It really is. Thank you for bringing me here." They spent the rest of the day exploring the ridge, their conversation flowing easily. Jack felt a growing connection with Laura, her presence a source of comfort and inspiration. As they hiked back down, Laura turned to Jack, her expression thoughtful. "Jack, I don't know what brought you to Seattle, but I'm glad you are here. You seem like someone who embraces life's adventures." Jack smiled, feeling a sense of affirmation. "Thank you, Laura. Moving to Seattle was a big step for me, but it's been worth it. I'm looking forward to what the future holds." They parted ways at the end of the day, exchanging phone numbers and promising to stay in touch. Jack felt a sense of excitement as he drove back to his apartment. He was starting to build meaningful connections and embrace the possibilities of his new life. That evening, Jack reflected on the journey he had taken. From the pain of betrayal to the hope of new beginnings, he had come a long way. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for the support of his daughters, the friendship of people like Mark and Laura, and the promise of a brighter future. As he drifted off to sleep, Jack felt a sense of peace. He was ready to embrace whatever life had in store for him, confident in his ability to face any challenge with courage and resilience. Jack Mitchell woke up to the sound of seagulls calling outside his window. The morning sun filtered through the blinds, casting a warm glow over his apartment. It had been several months since he moved to Seattle, and the city was finally starting to feel like home. He stretched and got out of bed, feeling a sense of anticipation for the day ahead. Jack had planned a busy day filled with new experiences and opportunities to further immerse himself in his new life. He made a quick breakfast and then set out for the waterfront, where he had scheduled a sailing trip with the local club. The sailing club had become a significant part of Jack's life, providing him with a sense of community and a way to reconnect with his love for the water. As he arrived at the marina, he was greeted by familiar faces and warm smiles. "Jack! Good to see you!" called out Greg, one of the club members. "Ready for a great day on the water?" "Absolutely," Jack replied, feeling the excitement build. "Let's get going." They set sail, the wind filling the sails and propelling them forward. The water sparkled under the bright sun, and Jack felt a deep sense of contentment. Sailing had always been a source of joy for him, and sharing it with new friends made it even more special. As they navigated the waters, Jack and Greg talked about their lives and aspirations. Greg was a native of Seattle and had been a member of the club for years. His knowledge of the area and his passion for sailing made him an excellent companion. "Seattle is a great place for new beginnings," Greg said, steering the boat with ease. "I've seen many people come here looking for a fresh start, and they often find exactly what they are looking for." Jack nodded, feeling the truth in Greg's words. "That's what I'm hoping for. It's been a challenging few months, but I'm starting to feel like I belong here." As they continued sailing, Jack couldn't help but think about the people who had helped him along the way. Mark, Emily, Sophie, and now Laura and his new friends at the sailing club. They had all played a role in his journey toward healing and renewal. After a few hours on the water, they returned to the marina. Jack felt invigorated and ready for the rest of the day. He thanked Greg and the other club members, promising to join them for another trip soon. Next on his agenda was a lunch meeting with a colleague from work, someone who had become a close friend since Jack's arrival in Seattle. Henry, his boss, had been supportive and understanding, providing Jack with the stability he needed during this transition. They met at a small cafe near the office, where the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and baked goods filled the air. Jack spotted Henry at a corner table, waving him over. "Hey, Jack!" "Over here," Henry called out, a smile on his face. Jack joined him, feeling a sense of camaraderie. "Thanks for meeting me, Henry. I've been looking forward to catching up." Henry nodded, taking a sip of his coffee. "Of course, Jack. How's everything going? Settling in well?" Jack smiled. "Yes, things are going great. The sailing club has been fantastic, and I'm starting to feel more connected to the city. Work has been busy but rewarding." Henry's expression turned thoughtful. "I'm glad to hear that. You've been a valuable addition to the team, Jack. We are lucky to have you." Jack felt a surge of gratitude. "Thank you, Henry. Your support has made a big difference. I am grateful for the opportunities I've had here." They continued to talk about work, life, and their plans for the future. Henry shared his own experiences of moving to Seattle years ago and offered advice on navigating the city's many opportunities and challenges. As they finished their lunch, Henry extended an invitation. "We are having a team dinner next week. It would be great if you could join us. It's a good opportunity to connect with everyone outside of work." Jack agreed, looking forward to the chance to build stronger relationships with his colleagues. "I'll be there. Thanks for the invite." After lunch, Jack had some free time before his next appointment. He decided to visit the local bookstore, a place he had discovered during one of his explorations of the city. The bookstore was a haven of cozy reading nooks and shelves filled with literary treasures. As he browsed the aisles, Jack found himself drawn to the travel section. He picked up a book on hiking trails in Washington state, intrigued by the possibilities for future adventures. Lost in the pages, he didn't notice Laura approaching until she spoke. "Jack, fancy meeting you here," she said, her eyes lighting up with surprise. Jack looked up, a smile spreading across his face. "Laura, what a pleasant surprise. How are you?" "I'm great, thanks. Just picking up a few books for the weekend." "How about you?" Laura replied, holding a couple of novels in her hand. "Same here. I found this book on hiking trails. Thought it might be useful for planning some trips," Jack said, showing her the book. Laura's eyes sparkled with interest. "That's a great choice. There are some amazing trails around here. Maybe we could explore one together sometime?" Jack felt a warmth spread through him at the suggestion. "I'd love that. Let's make it happen." They spent the next hour browsing the bookstore together, discussing their favorite books and making plans for future hikes. Jack felt a growing connection with Laura, her presence a source of joy and excitement. As they left the bookstore, Laura turned to Jack with a smile. "How about we grab a coffee and chat some more?" Jack agreed, feeling a sense of anticipation. They found a nearby cafe and settled into a corner booth. The conversation flowed easily, their shared interests and sense of adventure creating a bond. "Jack, I'm really glad we met," Laura said, her eyes reflecting sincerity. "You've brought a lot of positivity into my life." Jack felt his heart swell with happiness. "I feel the same way, Laura. Meeting you has been one of the best things about moving to Seattle." They talked for hours, losing track of time as they shared stories and dreams. Jack felt a sense of possibility for the future, a feeling that had been absent for too long. As the evening drew to a close, Jack walked Laura to her car. They stood there for a moment, the city lights casting a soft glow around them. "Thank you for a wonderful day, Laura," Jack said, feeling a mix of emotions. "I am looking forward to our next adventure." Laura smiled, her eyes twinkling. "Me too, Jack. Have a great night." As Jack watched her drive away, he felt a sense of fulfillment. His new life in Seattle was unfolding in ways he had never imagined, filled with new friendships, adventures, and the promise of love. That night, as he lay in bed, Jack thought about the journey he had taken. From the pain and betrayal of his past to the hope and joy of his present, he had come a long way. He knew there would still be challenges ahead, but he felt ready to face them. Seattle had become more than just a place to escape. It was a place of healing, growth, and new beginnings. And with people like Laura by his side, Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose and excitement for the future. Jack Mitchell's new life in Seattle was steadily falling into place, but the emotional remnants of his past still lingered. The divorce, although finalized, had left him with mixed feelings. He often found himself reflecting on his marriage, grappling with both the good memories and the betrayal. However, he was determined to move forward, focusing on the present and the future. One evening, as Jack was tidying up his apartment, he received a call from Emily. Her voice was tinged with concern. "Dad, Mom's been calling us a lot lately. She seems really upset. Have you spoken to her recently?" Emily asked. Jack sighed, rubbing his temples. "No, I haven't. After the divorce was finalized, we haven't really talked. What's she been saying?" "She's been apologizing a lot, saying she regrets everything and wants to make amends," Emily explained. "It is hard for Sophie and me to know what to do. We love her, but we are still hurt by what she did to you." Jack felt a pang of sympathy for his daughters. "I understand, Emily. It's a difficult situation for all of us. You and Sophie need to do what feels right for you. You can have a relationship with your mother, but Don T feel pressured to forgive her quickly. Healing takes time." Emily sighed. "Thanks, Dad. We'll figure it out. We just wanted to let you know what has been going on." Jack appreciated the update, despite the mixed emotions it stirred. "I am glad you told me. Keep me posted, and remember, I am always here for you." After hanging up, Jack sat in silence, contemplating the call. He knew he couldn't change the past, but he hoped Linda would find her way to healing as well. His focus remained on his daughters and the new life he was building. The next few days were busy at work, with several projects reaching critical stages. Jack found solace in the challenges, immersing himself in the tasks at hand. His colleagues continued to be supportive, and the sense of camaraderie was a balm to his soul. One afternoon, Jack received a message from Laura, inviting him to a local music festival. The thought of spending more time with her lifted his spirits, and he eagerly accepted the invitation. They had grown closer over the past few weeks, and Jack cherished their blossoming friendship. The music festival was held in a picturesque park, with stages set up among the trees and food stalls offering a variety of delicious treats. Jack met Laura at the entrance, her smile brightening his day. "Jack, I'm so glad you could make it," Laura said, giving him a warm hug. "I wouldn't have missed it for the world," Jack replied, feeling a rush of happiness. They spent the afternoon enjoying the music, dancing, and sampling different foods. The atmosphere was vibrant and filled with positive energy. Jack felt a deep sense of contentment as he and Laura shared laughter and conversation. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the park, Laura turned to Jack with a thoughtful expression. "Jack, I have been meaning to ask you something. Would you be interested in going on a weekend trip? There is a cabin I know of near the mountains. It is a great place to relax and unwind." Jack felt a thrill of excitement at the idea. "That sounds wonderful, Laura. I'd love to go." They made plans for the trip, and Jack found himself looking forward to it with eager anticipation. It was another step in his journey of healing and embracing new experiences. The weekend arrived, and Jack packed his bags for the trip. The drive to the cabin was scenic, with winding roads leading through lush forests and past sparkling rivers. Laura played music, and they sang along, their voices blending harmoniously. The cabin was cozy and inviting, nestled in a secluded spot with breathtaking views of the mountains. They spent their days hiking, fishing, and enjoying the tranquility of nature. In the evenings, they sat by the fireplace, sharing stories and dreams. One night, as they sat on the porch under a starlit sky, Laura turned to Jack with a serious look. "Jack, I need to tell you something. I've been through my own share of heartache. My last relationship ended badly, and it took me a long time to trust again. But being with you has been healing for me. I feel like I can finally open up again." Jack reached out, taking her hand in his. "Laura, thank you for sharing that with me. I know it is not easy to talk about. I've felt the same way since meeting you. You have brought a lot of joy and hope into my life." They sat in comfortable silence, the connection between them growing stronger. Jack felt a deep sense of gratitude for having found someone who understood his pain and shared his journey of healing. As their trip came to an end, Jack and Laura promised to plan more adventures together. They returned to Seattle, their bond strengthened by the time they had spent in the mountains. Back in the city, Jack continued to focus on his work and his newfound friendships. He stayed in touch with Emily and Sophie, who were navigating their own paths of healing and reconciliation with their mother. Jack encouraged them to follow their hearts and take their time, knowing that forgiveness and trust could not be rushed. One evening, Jack received an unexpected call from Mark. His friend S' voice was filled with excitement. "Jack, I am coming to Seattle for a conference next month. We need to catch up." Jack felt a surge of happiness at the news. "That S fantastic, Mark. I can't wait to see you. We'll definitely make the most of your visit." The anticipation of reconnecting with Mark brought a sense of nostalgia and joy. Jack looked forward to showing his friend around the city that had become his new home. As the days passed, Jack continued to embrace his new life with enthusiasm. He attended the team dinner Henry had organized, deepening his connections with his colleagues. The support and friendship he found in his workplace were invaluable, helping him navigate the challenges and opportunities of his new environment. Jack also made time for personal reflection and growth. He began journaling, capturing his thoughts and emotions as he processed the changes in his life. The act of writing was therapeutic, allowing him to explore his feelings and gain clarity. One weekend, Jack decided to take a solo trip to the nearby San Juan Islands. The serene beauty of the islands offered a perfect backdrop for introspection and relaxation. He spent his days kayaking, hiking, and simply enjoying the peace and solitude. As Jack stood on a cliff overlooking the ocean, he felt a profound sense of peace. The journey he had taken, from the depths of betrayal to the heights of renewal, had been challenging but transformative. He had discovered strength he didn't know he possessed and found new sources of joy and connection. Returning to Seattle, Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was ready to face whatever the future held, confident in his ability to navigate life's twists and turns. He knew that he was not alone, surrounded by people who cared about him and shared in his journey. That night, as Jack lay in bed, he thought about the path he had traveled. From the pain of his past to the promise of his future, he had come a long way. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for the love and support he had received and the opportunities that lay ahead. Seattle was more than just a place to start over. It was a place of healing, growth, and new beginnings. And with friends like Mark and Laura and the unwavering support of his daughters, Jack knew that he was ready to embrace whatever came next. The arrival of spring in Seattle brought with it a renewed sense of vitality and optimism. Jack Mitchell felt the change in the air, and it mirrored his internal journey of healing and growth. The past months had been transformative, and he was ready to fully embrace the future. Jack's routine had become a blend of work, outdoor activities, and spending time with friends. His relationship with Laura had deepened, and they often explored the city and its surroundings together. Their bond was built on mutual respect and shared experiences, and it brought Jack a sense of joy and fulfillment he hadn't felt in years. One Saturday, Jack and Laura decided to hike up to Rattlesnake Ledge, a popular trail with stunning views of the surrounding landscape. The hike was challenging but rewarding, and the conversations they shared along the way made the journey even more special. As they reached the top, panting and exhilarated, they sat on a large rock, taking in the breathtaking view. The sun cast a golden hue over the mountains, and the lake below shimmered like a jewel. "This is incredible," Laura said, her eyes wide with wonder. "Thank you for suggesting this hike, Jack." Jack smiled, feeling a deep sense of contentment. "I'm glad you are here to share it with me. It's moments like these that make everything worth it." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, simply enjoying each other's company and the beauty around them. Jack felt a sense of peace that had been elusive for so long. The journey he had taken, the pain and the healing, all led to this moment of tranquility. As they made their way back down the trail, Laura turned to Jack with a thoughtful expression. Jack, I've been thinking a lot about us. I feel so connected to you, and I can see a future together. How do you feel about it? Jack's heart swelled with emotion. Laura, I feel the same way. Being with you has been a gift. I am excited about our future and what we can build together. Laura smiled, her eyes shining with happiness. I'm so glad to hear that, Jack. Let's take it one step at a time and see where it leads. Jack agreed, feeling a sense of excitement for the possibilities ahead. Their relationship was a source of strength and joy, and he was grateful for the new chapter they were writing together. The following week, Jack welcomed his old friend Mark to Seattle. Mark's conference brought him to the city, and they planned to catch up and explore together. Jack was eager to show Mark the life he had built and share the experiences that had shaped him. They met at a bustling seafood restaurant near the waterfront, the air filled with the aroma of fresh fish and salt water. Jack spotted Mark at a table, his face lighting up with a broad smile. "Jack, it's so good to see you," Mark exclaimed, standing to embrace his friend. "Great to see you too, Mark," Jack replied, feeling a rush of nostalgia and warmth. "Welcome to Seattle." They ordered their meals and caught up on each other's lives. Mark shared stories about his work and family, while Jack recounted his adventures and the new connections he had made. "I'm really impressed with how you've turned things around, Jack," Mark said, raising his glass. "You've built a new life here, and it's inspiring." Jack felt a surge of gratitude. "Thanks, Mark. It hasn't been easy, but I've had a lot of support from friends like you, and it's made all the difference." They spent the evening reminiscing about old times and making plans for future visits. Mark's presence was a reminder of the enduring friendships that had helped Jack through his darkest times. Over the next few days, Jack and Mark explored Seattle together. They visited iconic landmarks, enjoyed local cuisine, and even took a sailing trip. Mark was thrilled to experience the city through Jack's eyes, and their bond grew stronger. One evening, as they sat by the fire pit on Jack's apartment balcony, Mark turned to Jack with a serious expression. "Jack, I have to ask, how are you really doing? I know you've been through a lot." Jack appreciated the concern in Mark's voice. "Honestly, I am doing well. There are still moments when the past weighs on me, but I am focused on the present and the future. I've found happiness here, and it's been a healing journey." Mark nodded, his eyes reflecting understanding. "I'm glad to hear that, Jack. You deserve all the happiness in the world." As Mark's visit came to an end, Jack felt a renewed sense of connection and support. The time they had spent together was a reminder of the strength of true friendship and the importance of staying connected to those who matter most. With spring in full bloom, Jack decided to organize a small gathering for his friends and colleagues. It was a way to celebrate the new beginnings and express gratitude for the support he had received. He invited Laura, Henry, and a few close friends from the sailing club. The gathering was held at a scenic park with views of the mountains and the city skyline. They set up a picnic area with food, drinks, and games. The atmosphere was filled with laughter and camaraderie, and Jack felt a deep sense of fulfillment. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the park, Jack stood up to address his friends. "Thank you all for being here. This gathering is a celebration of new beginnings and the amazing support I have received from each of you. Moving to Seattle has been a journey of healing and growth, and I couldn't have done it without you." Laura stood beside him, her eyes filled with pride and affection. "Jack, you've been an inspiration to all of us. We are grateful to have you in our lives." The evening continued with music, dancing, and heartfelt conversations. Jack looked around at the faces of his friends, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. He had built a community, a family of choice, that supported and uplifted him. As the night drew to a close, Jack sat by the fire pit, reflecting on the journey he had taken. From the pain of betrayal to the joy of new beginnings, he had come a long way. He felt a deep sense of peace and readiness for whatever the future held. Seattle had become more than just a place to escape. It was a place of healing, growth, and connection. With friends like Laura, Mark, and his colleagues, Jack knew he was ready to embrace whatever came next. That night, as he lay in bed, Jack thought about the path he had traveled. From the depths of despair to the heights of renewal, he had discovered strength, love, and joy. He was ready for the future, confident in his ability to navigate life's twists and turns. Seattle was his home, and with the support of his friends and loved ones, Jack knew that he was ready to face any challenge with courage and resilience. The journey was far from over, but he was ready to embrace every moment with an open heart and an adventurous spirit. Thank you for listening to this story. Subscribe to my channel, put a like under the video, and write a comment about how you like this story and what stories you want to hear.